The Fifth Estate.
I'm Adrienne Clarkson. Tonight we report on a secret CIA research project carried out in Montreal. Felt they were used as the CIA's guinea pigs.
Just so you know, this is happening right now more than ever before. And how do you identify this? In family, say you have a relative that you love, you always got along with. Did one of your parents, because they got a divorce, run a PSYOP to get you to hate your mom or your dad? Did one of your relatives cause you to not like a grandfather or a cousin or an aunt or anything because it's a psychological PSYOP? This doesn't just happen with these Edward Bernays. These can happen with your parents, with kids, with siblings, with cousins, with peers in high school. When I wanted to go out there and do something, my friends, one of them had a psychological PSYOP. All Pat cares about is this. Oh my God, but don't answer Pat's calls because it's this. It was a PSYOP. And then later on, I'm like, hey, and one of my friends was like, look, that one guy convinced us that you wanted to do. These PSYOPs happen every single place. It's constant.
Let me tell you what triangulation is.
Anytime you have an ongoing significant relationship, certain differences are just going to show up. It's inevitable, whether we're talking about inside your home or in social circles or organizations, work settings, etc. And in those moments of differentness, that's when you're going to be able to see the level of maturity that individuals bring with them. Differentness is not bad. Variety is the spice of life. And when you and I find out that we don't prioritize or the same, or we don't think things through in the same kind of way, or we don't have the same interpretation, what we can do is we can learn from each other. Narcissists don't think that way. When they think of you as being different from them, they are interpreting it as rejection. And because they feel rejected or somehow or another diminished because of your differentness, they're thinking, I've got to figure out how to get you onto my team. And they're going to try to persuade you and talk with you and explain to you why your ways are wrong and their ways are right. And then when they don't succeed with that, they bring out one of their dirty tactics to try to get you in line, and it's the tactic of triangulation.
Triangulation
is, in essence, it's a psychological threesome that you didn't consent to. It is one of the narcissist's favorite manipulations, and they use it to create chaos and harness that chaos to control the situation and the people in that situation. It's a bit like
when somebody, let's say person A and person B have a relationship, and person B feels hurt or bugged by or something. They got an issue with person A and they got a conflict. And then person B goes and talks to person C about their problem with person A. Now, person C also has a relationship with person A, but wasn't in the conversation or wasn't in the conflict. Or person C may not have a relationship with person A. But what happens is person B is not resolving it with person A. They're having feelings about that, and they feel victimized by person A. So they go to somebody, person C, to talk about that. And that turns person C, if they are naive, that turns person C against person A. That's the triangle. That's why I call it triangulation.
You've heard the old saying, if I can't control you, then I'll control the way people think about you. Control you, then I'll control the way people think about you. Control you, then I'll control the way people think about you.
Just so you know, this is happening right now.
And that's what triangulation is all about. When a person uses triangulation, what they're doing is they're attempting to control or to punish or to ruin you by bringing other individuals.
So let's say in your family, you got a bunch of adult siblings, and one of your siblings does something to one of your other siblings, or maybe in a circle of friends, one person does something to another person and they call you. Well,
like setting a fire and then being the hero that saves the day by putting it out and taking advantage. Like setting a fire and then being the hero that saves the day by putting it out and taking advantage. Like setting a fire and then being the hero that saves the day by putting it out and taking advantage of the chaos. The most simple and classical triangulation takes place in especially families that have 2 children. Though a narcissistic parent will often treat their children very differently.
When a person uses triangulation, what they're doing is they're attempting to control or to punish or to ruin you by bringing other individuals into the process. They want to involve other individuals in your life, and comparatively, they want to let you know you're less than me and my ally over here. And so they play you off of other individuals, hoping, of course, to elevate themselves and to allow other people to think poorly of you, and therefore forcing you to have to say, okay, I'll go along with you. It's ridiculous, but that's the dirty part of it. They don't really care about anything other than winning over you.
Cameron's work on psychic driving because it could give them an idea of where the personality could break or be stressed.
Those of us who were involved with trying to find out something about brainwashing, yes.
One guy convinced us that you wanted to do. These PSYOPs happen every single place. It's constant. All you have to be aware is if all of a sudden your emotions towards something goes extremely bad, ask yourself, what I used to like this guy, why don't I anymore? What happened all of a sudden? And nowadays, it's a lot easier to do so with the help of social media, YouTube videos, content. So it's easier to fall for it, especially since the number is 82 hours a week? That's an insane number when we think about consuming information. The whole purpose of this episode is just to make you aware.
A research project carried out in Montreal felt they were used.
Triangulation is a form of psychological manipulation. The aim is often to divide and conquer. It's a way that a manipulative person tries to turn a situation to their favor by turning others against each other, making someone else look like the villain, creating confusion, disharmony, and using a lot of indirect communication to communicate something to one person through a third party. It is a strategy to try to gain some kind of advantage over rivals, partners, family members. Gain advantage by manipulating them into conflicts. It's often used by narcissistic people to protect their egos, to create drama, or for some kind of one-upmanship. But usually the purpose of triangulation is to draw attention away from whatever the real issue is, whatever the real conflict is in that relationship, because there is now a new conflict to focus on.
A research project carried out in Montreal felt they were used.
Your mind. You can calm it, lose it, change it, blow it, or even use it to follow the advice of 90s R&B groups.
When narcissists have great difficulty pulling you into their schemes, they're naturally going to think, well, what else do I need to do to force you into my way of thinking? And if I can't do that, then how am I going to make you look foolish? And that, of course, is where that dirty trick of triangulation comes in. Basically, they're in their mind, they may not say this exactly word for word, but in their mind, they're thinking, I'm willing to groom other individuals, or I'm willing to use other individuals in such a way that's going to make you look foolish or feel foolish. And by the way, honesty is not required. That's how they think.
The CIA was seeking a new weapon aimed not at the body, but at the mind.
Those who control your words control your mind.
You say the president is using mind control, but how is that provable?
But your mind is also something that other people or forces are trying to control. And sure, your brain is an impenetrable fortress, and advertising doesn't work on you, and you've listened to enough true crime podcasts to recognize a cult when you see one. But people hoping to influence your thoughts have countless ways to at least try. And it sure seems like they can get you to do some pretty weird stuff, at least if we're to believe everything we see on TV.
A shopkeeper has lost hundreds of pounds of cash after a thief used a trick that appears to leave the victim hypnotized.
Even we were surprised to hear of the latest tactic to sell a house, hypnosis.
Whether hypnosis can literally capture your mind has figuratively captured our minds for centuries.
Subscribe to the channel. Let's get right into it. What is a PSYOP? Psychological operation is a strategic effort often conducted by governments, military organizations, or other groups to influence the emotions, the beliefs, attitudes and behavior of a target audience. The goal is typically to gain an advantage, shape public opinion, disrupt opposition, or achieve a specific objective without direct confrontation or force. Keyword, without direct confrontation or force. Think about the power of that. So before I tell you the different types of PSYOPs, let me tell you what this Edward Bernays guy that wrote a book called Propaganda that everybody needs to read. He was a father of public relations and father of spin. He said this one time in 1928. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. What? Wait for it. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible, listen to it, an invisible government, invisible government, invisible government, invisible government, invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. Invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. What he's trying to say is that whoever knows how to run propagandas, you may not know who they are, they're faceless, but they're more powerful than a president, than a governor, than billionaires, than any of the rich people out there that are very public. Very interesting. Now, let's see what different types of PSYOPs we can run out there that's been run on you and I. Now, you'll hear propagandas being used in military, in corporate, in politics, and in religion. We'll give you different kind of examples, so it kind of gives you an idea what these PSYOPs are. However, one of the things I want to show you is the following chart here. Here's what this chart shows. 60 years ago. So what are the chances that you consumed the different news outlets that you had? There was 2 of them. So if you consume one, guess what? You got 50% of the news. If there were 5 papers, maybe you could read all the 5 papers in the morning when you're starting your day, right? Today, the amount of news that's being given, you can't consume it all. This is the lowest percentage ever of us being able to read what everybody else is saying. Let me explain this to you from this website. The ratio of the amount of information consumed per year by the average person to the amount created per year in its total is the lowest it's ever been by our analysis. We have this much, you only consume this much. Back in the day was this much, you consumed it all. We don't have that today. So that could be good and bad depending on what position you got. Now, when he breaks down different ways of doing PSYOPs, he explains the influence relevant to PSYOPs in these 3 areas. Emotional manipulation. Bernays used emotions like fear, pride, and desire to sell products and ideas, similar to how PSYOPs leverage psychological drivers and target audiences. 2, media as a weapon. He understood the media's power to disseminate messages widely and control narratives, a core tactic in PSYOPs. And 3, credibility and authority. Bernays frequently worked with trusted figures, doctors, scientists, to lend credibility to campaigns. PSYOPs often rely on similar methods using trusted voices to amplify messages. For example, 51 former intelligence agents signed the fact that there's nothing in a laptop. Okay, so there must be nothing on the laptop. The FBI said, okay, then there must be doing something wrong. This person said, oh, so there must be something going on here. Credibility, you must be wearing masks because Anthony Fauci said, oh, we must be wearing this. You kind of take it because these experts and scientists and doctors are telling us what to do.
Figuratively captured our minds for centuries, whether it was young Sigmund Freud, or the evil mom from Get Out, or just someone trying to figure out a new use for their old pocket watch.
Soon, we drop into a very deep, hypnotic sleep.
1, 2...
And sleep.
Hypnosis can put people into a state where they experience heightened focus and concentration and a stronger than usual response to suggestion. It's sometimes used as part of therapy for helping to treat depression, lose weight, quit smoking, or cope with pain. There are also more disturbing uses of hypnosis.
Thorough understanding of what seduction through hypnosis is, you will be able to fully grasp the concept of this revolutionary new method of seduction.
The fact is that if you're not using hypnosis, deep persuasion, and mind control techniques to seduce women, you're losing out big time.
These alternative types of hypnosis, which don't seem to take into account, consent, became popular in the 80s. They're part of a pseudoscience called neurolinguistic programming. It relies on subtle touches, cues, and language choices to bend someone's will. It repurposes parts of hypnotherapy for more self-serving purposes like sex, sales, or convincing people, no, it's totally normal how much time I spend online trying to learn hypnosis. Many hypnotists argue that hypnosis isn't mind control at all, since they claim it can't make someone do something they truly don't want to do.
So now, in order to understand it, let's just say, Pat, I don't want to go read the book Propaganda. Let me kind of tell you what he tells you in his books on what the stages of a PSYOP is. Number one, planning an objective setting. Define the mission, goals, and desired outcomes. Identify the target audience, whoever it is, enemy forces, civilians, global opinion. Clarify the psychological effect you aim to achieve. Align the PSYOP with broader strategic and operational goals. Number two, research and intelligence gathering. Understand the target audience and operational environment. Study cultural, social, religious, and psychological traits of the target group. Analyze media consumption habits. Assess vulnerabilities, fears, and motivations of the targeted audience. Very interesting. Motivations and fears. Number three, message development. Craft content designed to achieve the intended psychological effect. Use themes and narratives that resonate with the target audience. Ensure the message appears credible, culturally appropriate, and relevant. Decide on the tone, fear, hope, anger, humor, based on the psychological goal. Number four, medium and method selection. Choose effective delivery channels for the message. Radio broadcasts, leaflets, social media, videos, posters, face-to-face communication, and match the medium to the target audience's habits, technological access. Number five, execution and dissemination. Deliver the message to the target audience. Time and synchronize delivery with other operations, military movements, or political events. Use repetition and consistency to reinforce the message. Employ covert or overt tactics depending on operational requirements. Number six, monitoring and feedback. Measure the impact of the PSYOP. Collect data on the audience, changes in behavior, sentiment, or communications patterns. Use intelligence reports, intercept the communication, and public sentiment analysis to assess effectiveness. By the way, a lot of companies use this. You and I have had positive PSYOPs. It's commercials. Oh my God, let me go to the gym and buy. Oh my God, let me go buy a house. Oh my God, let me go do this. So this is not all manipulative negative things. Some of it is done also that's in a positive way. Seven, adjustment and adaptation. Refine strategies based on feedback. Modify message methods or target audience if the PSYOP is not achieving desired result. Address unintended consequences or backlash. Number eight, termination or transition. Conclude the PSYOP or transition it into another phase. Decide if the operation has met its objective or should evolve into another strategy. Assess long-term effects on the target audience and operational environment. You could say, boom, we got him. It worked. They hate the guy. Boom. We got him. It works. They no longer trust the guy.
The CIA was seeking a new weapon aimed not at the body, but at the mind.
Those who control your words control your mind.
You say the president is using mind control, but how is that provable?
Since they claim it can't make someone do something they truly don't want to do. Because no officer, you see, they wouldn't have given me the cash unless deep down they really wanted me to have it. Because no officer, you see, they wouldn't have given me the cash unless deep down they really wanted me to have it. Even if you're able to fend off a aspiring hypnotist, there are plenty of other forces trying to gain control of your brain by possessing your body. Forces like, I don't know, the devil? Ever heard of him? The Catholic Church has. According to them, the number of exorcisms they've performed has gone up over the last few decades.
Speak, I command you.
A troubling trend, whether the church is just doing exorcisms all willy-nilly, or the devil got himself organized and upped his productivity. If you don't believe the devil is trying to take over your brain and body because, honestly, what makes you so special, the natural world is full of other threats to your autonomy, like...
Let me know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. This is the percentage of waking hours that we consume information. In 1910, it was less than 10%. Today, it's almost 80, 90%. Let me explain to you what this means. The number of hours you and I consume information today per week is 82 hours per week. We collect 90 times more bits of information today than we did in 1940, 4 times more bits of information today than 20 years ago. Our waking hours, all we're getting is information. We didn't have this kind of a life. We didn't have to process so much information. So does this cause the people who want to have psychological operations, PSYOPs on you, is it easier today or is it easier 90 years ago? One may say it was easier 90 years ago because there was no social media, but one may say it's easier to get over something today and forget it. Assassination, oh my God, 1 week. Hey, what happened? Oh my God, fire. Hey, it was a, oh my God, election. Hey, we forget so quickly. So today we're gonna take a deep dive on different formats of PSYOP. We're gonna break down the founder. They call him the father of spin. We're gonna break down PSYOPs today.
Find out something about brainwashing. Yes, this is the reason that we were interested in Dr. Cameron's work.
The Central Intelligence Agency has been accused of manipulating citizens of countries all over the world, including Canada. At the moment, a number of Canadians are considering suing the CIA. They believe they are victims of covert CIA experiments. Tonight, two Canadians who feel the past 20 years of their lives were damaged by the CIA tell their stories publicly for the first time. They believe they were part of a CIA project called MK Ultra, a research project so secret that even the Canadian government was not informed that the agency was funding activities in this country. The CIA was seeking a new weapon, aimed not at the body, but at the mind.
Of our government, it was a tremendous shock. As the Fifth Estate was first to report in 1984, the work that Dr. Ewan Cameron oversaw at his Montreal clinic was shocking. Now the story of Cameron's experiments and the victims' struggle for justice have been made into a riveting movie to be broadcast on CBC television this Sunday and Monday nights.
Governments have also tried to control people through chemical concoctions, also known as drugs. During the Cold War, the U.S.'s drug of choice was LSD. Headed up by the CIA, Project MK Ultra was a series of dangerous, often unethical, and sometimes illegal experiments on controlling human behavior. They included methods like torture, sensory deprivation, electroshock treatments, and dosing thousands of subjects with LSD and other drugs, sometimes against their will. The program shattered the lives of many of its subjects, some reporting long-term trauma and permanent debilitation. And if you're one of those weird, the ends justify the means people, you'll be disappointed to hear that long after the program ended, the guy in charge concluded that the work there had been useless. MK Ultra was driven by the US's fear that the Soviet Union was also working on mind control tech, which they were. The Soviets had a billion-dollar program for mind control research they called psychotronics, which was built on the pseudoscientific theory that brains could send and receive a kind of high-frequency electromagnetic radiation. While I would happily accept $1 billion of government money to essentially come up with the idea of being on the same wavelength, the Soviets' ideas feel pretty similar to some modern takes on mind control.
It's not that the microwaves have somehow interfaced with the brain. We already interface with the space winds and all these other magnetic fields.
Some aspiring mind controllers try to manipulate one person at a time, which, if we're being honest, is inefficient. Mental manipulators who actually believe in themselves try to mesmerize large groups at once. Marketing researchers in the 1950s fell in love with the idea of using subliminal messaging, provocative images and messages flashing on a screen so quickly that the conscious brain wouldn't register them, but would be influenced to buy something. It's unclear how effective subliminal messaging is, as some say it works, others say it doesn't, and the rest of us are pretty sure it's just a lazy stand-in for a good ad campaign. But more subtle cues can also inform our consumer habits. In one study, playing French music in a supermarket increased sales of French wine, while piping in German music increased sales of German wine. And I can only assume that playing Taylor Swift would increase sales of very bland wines that every few years my friends insist I try, saying, no, it's good now. These days, many mind control anxieties center around the media and how it molds our thoughts and actions. In 2018, the largest owner of local TV news stations in the US, Sinclair Broadcast Group, made hundreds of news anchors read the same script on air. Deadspin compiled those messages into an eerie mashup.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think.
The irony of making broadcasters criticize bias and agenda pushing with the same word-for-word script is, well, it's so rich it doesn't have to pay taxes. While Sinclair claimed the segment was a promotional campaign to warn against fake news, the segment led people to accuse Sinclair of being a cult and brainwashing its audiences. But it is true that the internet, and social media in particular, have a massive influence over what we think.
Some programmers call it brain hacking, and the tech world would probably prefer you didn't hear about it.
Once social media was designed and keeps on creating itself, then the social media, in fact, is going to be shaping the brain.
Social media can radicalize unsuspecting users into extreme beliefs and change our behavior through habit building and conditioning, reinforced with tiny rewards like notifications or getting likes, or punishments like no notifications, or people who comment on a post without liking it. Where do you get off? While big tech isn't dosing you with LSD, although some of them definitely would if you let them, that doesn't mean there isn't a chemical element. Social media has been compared to other addictive habits, like gambling, because it gives your brain a hit of dopamine, which, if you ask the people who built Facebook, wasn't by accident.
It's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology.
In a 2014 paper with the terrifying title, Experimental Evidence of Massive-Scale Emotional Contagion Through Social Networks, researchers working at Facebook seemed to show they could alter users' moods and posting behavior by tinkering with their feeds. The study was condemned for failing to get consent from the hundreds of thousands of people it turned into subjects. Facebook spokespeople later apologized, but CEO Mark Zuckerberg was probably busy applying a completely appropriate amount of sunscreen. You probably have at least a few years before social media, street hypnotists, or pet parasites turn you into a complete zombie. After all, at best, most methods of mind control have never worked
Got him. It worked. They hate the guy. Boom. We got him. It works. They no longer trust the guy. It is so effective. So now let me give you some examples of different kind of PSYOPs: military, corporate, political, and religious. Let's look at the military one. One of them is the D-Day deception, World War II. The Allies used Operation Fortitude, a series of fake armies, dummy tanks, and fake radio traffic to convince the Germans that the D-Day invasion would happen at Pas-de-Calais rather than Normandy. Objective: divert German defenses and ensure the success of the Normandy landings. Boom, effective. Next one, Operation Christmas Drop, which was happened during World War II. Initially a morale operation during World War II, U.S. planes dropped supplies and gifts to isolated Pacific Islanders, which became an annual tradition, fostering goodwill and influence. The objective: build trust and alliances with local populations. Buy them a gift. You ready for this next one? It's the Voice of Allah in Gulf War. The U.S. military broadcast messages in Arabic that mimic religious pronouncements, urging Iraqi soldiers to abandon their posts and return home to their families. The objective: exploit cultural and religious beliefs to reduce resistance. Here's a couple political psyops for you. Number one, the CIA Operation Mockingbird, a covert effort to influence American foreign media by recruiting journalists and using media outlets to spread pro-American and anti-communist narratives. Objective: shape public opinion during the Cold War. Next political psyop was the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which was the U.S. government exaggerated or fabricated details about North Vietnamese attacks on American ships to justify escalating the Vietnam War. Objective: rally public and congressional support for military intervention. Next one, corporate psyops. You ready for this? This is an Edward Bernays with different campaigns that he did. Bernays ran PSYOP-style campaigns like convincing women that smoking was a symbol of independence, torches of freedom, campaign for Lucky Strike. Objective: shift cultural attitudes to increase product consumption. It worked at the time. This next one, we've done an episode on this, is De Beers and Diamonds launched the A Diamond is Forever campaign, creating the cultural belief that diamonds are essential for engagements and eternal love. Objective: manufacture demand for diamonds by embedding them in cultural traditions. Now, all the ladies ask each other, babe, how big was the diamond he got you? What was it? Because of this campaign. This next one worked on all of us, especially if you got kids. It's the Happy Meals with McDonald's, right? By offering toys and meals, McDonald's targeted children to build early brand loyalty, leveraging pester power to influence parents. Objective: foster a lifetime of brand preference starting in childhood. And let me do a couple of cultural and religious psyops. Here's one of them: ISIS recruitment campaigns. They use highly produced videos and online propaganda to recruit members globally, portraying a false image of empowerment, belonging, and religious duty. Objective: attract fighters and supporters from around the world. It worked. Look what happened in New Orleans. Catastrophic. This next example is the Soviet atheist propaganda, which the USSR launched campaign to undermine religious institutions, portraying them as backwards and incompatible with the communist ideology. This included closing churches and promoting secular rituals. Objectives: replace religious faith with loyalty to the state and communist ideology. You know who else did this? Hitler also did this in Germany. By the way, before I give my final thoughts, this is exactly what we built the website, vtnews.ai. We hired 15 machine learning engineers because I wanted to go to the news site and say, all these stories that they're saying and all these headlines, what percentage of the left is reporting on this? What percentage of the right? Where is this source coming from? What stories are lopsided? Can I use AI to gather more information? And that's exactly what we built with vtnews.ai. If that's important to you, this is how we get our information when we do our podcast. Go to vtnews.ai to use it for yourself, and you'll find out exactly what I'm talking about. Having said that, just so you know, This is happening right now more than ever before. And how do you identify this? In family, say you have a relative that you love, you always got along with. Did one of your parents, because they got a divorce, run a PSYOP to get you to hate your mom or your dad? Did one of your relatives cause you to not like a grandfather or a cousin or an aunt or anything because it's a psychological PSYOP? This doesn't just happen with these Edward Bernays. These can happen with your parents, with kids, with siblings, with cousins, with peers in high school. When I wanted to go out there and do something, my friends, one of them had a psychological PSYOP. All Pat cares about is this. Oh my God, but don't answer Pat's calls because it's this. It was a PSYOP. And then later on, I'm like, hey, and one of my friends like, look, that one guy convinced us that you wanted to do. These PSYOPs happen every single place. It's constant. All you have to be aware is if all of a sudden your emotions towards something goes extremely bad, ask yourself, I used to like this guy. Why don't I anymore? What happened all of a sudden? And nowadays, it's a lot easier to do so with the help of social media, YouTube videos, content. So it's easier to fall for it, especially since the number is 82 hours a week? That's an insane number when we think about consuming information. The whole purpose of this episode is just to make you aware.